Hello and welcome to Cali Legends Media. Before I begin, I want to thank all the subscribers, all of you who hit the like and the hype buttons, man. I really appreciate you guys. And I'd like to welcome all the new subscribers to the channel. We're still trying to hit that 10,000 subscriber goal. One more thing before I begin. I had mentioned some people on a video a couple of days ago. One was my mother-in-law and my homeboy Gibby and my homeboy Tokyo. As I mentioned on yesterday's video, we lost my mother-in-law the following morning. And yesterday, we lost my homeboy Tokyo from Mariana Maravilla Tiny Dukes. And so anyways, rest in peace, Brother Tokes. And from those of you from the neighborhood, if you'd like to know, get in touch with somebody, or you could get in touch with me if you need more information once the arrangements have been made. The wife just left my house about 10 minutes ago, and she's going to be notifying me as soon as all the arrangements are final. Okay, so let's get into this video. This video is a response video from a video that a young man from Hoodie from the Hood channel, okay? Now, he doesn't live in LA. I think he lives in somewhere up towards San Diego, if I'm not mistaken. Nevertheless, he's very knowledgeable as far as neighborhoods go and everything. So whenever he comes up on my stream, I always watch his videos, man. The guy speaks very intelligently and very knowledgeable. Well, he was talking, first of all, about Snoopy Badass. Snoopy Badass is another individual who has made some comments on the internet that frustrated both the Mexicans and the blacks. First of all, he said blacks were afraid of Mexicans. Now, is that true? I don't think so. I don't believe that. I believe some of them are. But as a group, as a whole, no, of course not. Well, he turned it around. I guess that worked for him. He was getting views. He was in the algorithm. He turned it around, I guess, when things started slowing up on that conversation. And he came out with Mexicans are afraid of blacks. See? So you see how this guy works, you know. Hoodie from the Hood says he's a J-Cat. I don't know this guy. But the things he says don't make sense. So I'm going to believe he's got a little bit of problem as far as being identified as a J-Cat like that. I'd have to agree if somebody was to ask me. And, you know, he's got a touch of J-Cat in him. I think individual blacks, individual Mexicans are afraid. Some are even afraid, Mexicans afraid of Mexicans, afraid of black, afraid of everybody. Some are afraid of fight. Not everybody has the heart to, to get into it. But yeah, I've never seen fear from any group, okay? Although some individuals get found out when it hits a fan, you know, you see where their true colors. You know. Anyways, I wanted to get that out of the way because, I can't buy into that coin on either side, you know. So let's move on to the next part of this subject that Hoodie was covering, okay? And that was, I guess somebody asked a question, how could a black gang allow a Mexican gang to get set up in their neighborhood, you know? And later on, he kind of turned the question around and said, well, how did the black gangs set up in Mexican neighborhoods? Now, he mentioned that Hispanic gangs were the first ones on the scene here in Southern California. Way back, man. I'm talking about the old OG gangs down here, you know, Alpine, 38th Street. Anyways, without getting into details, let's get to the whole point of this, okay? He said they were there first, and the blacks later on came in to those areas and created the Crips and the Bloods and grew from there, okay? Now, I think the gangs had very little to say about who was going to do what in those neighborhoods at that time. Why? Because the time when the Crips and the Bloods, well, I'm going to start with the Crips, okay? The time that the Crips were started, that whole area was predominantly black, okay? Now, way before they came along, it was a white area. Jewish, Russians, different Caucasian people lived there. Downtown LA, Compton, all that area. And as they moved out, Black and Hispanics moved in, where it was mixed. Later, blacks became the majority of that area. So of course, they planted their flag, and it is what it is, you know. And it's been predominantly black down in most of those areas ever since. You have a few, still some Hispanic areas where Hispanic gangs exist. They've been around for a long time. But it wasn't that the blacks came in and just started a neighborhood. No, it was over time, you know, and as all the black children were growing up with more families moving in, you know, they got numbers as far as the neighborhood went. That became their neighborhoods, you know. Then they started different neighborhoods, you know, and even were warring against each other, okay? So I don't think it was a matter of Hispanics letting them or blacks going in there and taking over, you know, forcibly. It was just the way the people migrated. That happens in a lot of instances. Hoodie from the Hood mentioned Aliso Village. Aliso Village was practically all Hispanic at one time, okay? Well, black families started to move in, okay, little by little. And the kids start growing up. More black families moved in, and it became predominantly black. Aliso Village had mostly black families living there. And it was because of the affordable housing, okay? So with them came their neighborhoods, their gangs, you know, because the youngsters had been exposed to that and looked up to that and wanted to do the damn thing, and started their neighborhood there in Aliso. Now, East LA, at least I know in Maravilla, growing up, I remember when black families would move in, they would be made very uncomfortable and they'd move out quickly. They would not stay long, okay? This is when I was young. I'm talking in the 70s, okay? My older homeboys were active in the streets, and yeah, they kept a tight grip on the neighborhood. Same thing, though, it wasn't just only them. Same thing if another family from another neighborhood moved in that was Hispanic or was Mexican, and they moved into the neighborhood, and we'd find out where they were from. Same thing. You know, if it was an enemy, you know, they got an issue. If it wasn't an enemy, they were put on notice, you know. You know, look, man, we don't want you bringing all your homeboys over here, kicking it, and you and your family live there, whatever. Don't write on the walls. We don't want to all of a sudden see your neighborhood being written all over our neighborhood and stuff, this and that. And if they stepped out of line, they were made to feel uncomfortable. They wouldn't want to live here no more, and they would leave. But you have to stay on it, and be on top of those things. Now look, just in the 2000s, here in Maravilla, in East LA, a lot of housing projects have gone up. Now, we used to have, like the Maravilla projects, that was all Hispanic, okay? The whole project was all Hispanic. Now they're putting these, like brand new apartment houses and stuff, but they're all housing. They're all for housing purposes, okay, helping the homeless and stuff. So it's funny because there's a lot of homeless people here in East LA, Hispanics and stuff. You would think that they'd fill those up and use it to house these people off of the streets of Los Angeles. But they don't. They get residents from Compton, that area down there, and move them into these apartments. So you get guys from the PJs, you have, just to cut it short, you got Bloods and Crips living all in all these apartments, including other Hispanic gangs, okay? So the government placed them there, and they start dealing, they start doing their thing, which is all monitored and accounted for in the area, and they start violating that way, and there becomes issues, there becomes problems, okay? And bad things start happening to people, to cars, to, to make them leave, Now, that's just one way that gangs could come into a neighborhood and eventually get a foothold. I think I've seen more blacks in East LA than I ever have before. Getting out of school, walking down Whittier Boulevard and everything. It's not an issue. It's only when they're gang members that it becomes an issue. And if they start gang banging and rioting especially, okay? But I guess times have changed somewhat, because before that would not be allowed, I don't think our neighborhood like specifically has beef with Crips or Bloods or anything like that, if there was any issue, it would be started, there while the two gangs were present, or two gang members were present, depending how they respect and disrespect each other. But as far as any type of gang warfare with the blacks, there's nothing going on over here. And now we have a few families living here in the community, but the whole community is kind of shifting. We have a lot of different Mexican families, that are more into cultural stuff than gangs and stuff. But you still have the underground shit happening too that involves gangs. And it's never been a real issue here in East Los Angeles or in Maravilla. But it's only because the migration hasn't been allowed openly. It's always been stopped or short-stopped, or there's always conflict before anything could be, anybody can really settle in. Last thing you want to do is move into somebody's neighborhood and start selling rocks and PCP and stuff, it's going to create problems with you in that neighborhood. And that has happened throughout East Los Angeles, through all these housing projects and stuff. So before it was just the Maravilla projects. Now we got all these projects, man. They're popping up everywhere, these apartments. And like I said, they don't populate them with the people here from East LA. They populate them from people from other areas, you know. Then again, you have, like, our neighborhood has had offshoots. You know, we had a neighborhood in Fontana. I'm not going to go through the different places where our neighborhood has, where we have established neighborhoods. But the thing is that, you know, a family of some brothers would move to a certain city and meet some other people. They all start partying together, this and that. They start clicking up. Next thing you know, they're representing the neighborhood, you know. And again, it's through migration mostly, you know, it's and numbers. So I don't think it has anything to do with what's allowed and what's not allowed. Once you become the predominant and the majority in a neighborhood, you know, some neighborhoods are going at it with neighborhoods for this exact reason, and have been going at those neighborhoods for years, because there's borders, you know. And as the gangs get bigger, these gangs that come in and establish themselves and are the majority, as they get bigger, the other neighborhoods start feeling the pushback, and then you know, stuff happens. Same thing is if that gang gets smaller, the gang that's there already is going to push more towards them, towards their area, towards their neighborhood, and have more control. It's just because of the numbers and they're the majority, you know. I think the days of going in and taking over a neighborhood by force and all that, or stopping things like that, are different. You know, they call it something different now, especially if it involves different races. And they're calling it a hate crime now. You know, people still do it. You know, they'll still commit these offenses, you know, but it's a different charge now, you know. Anyways, I just wanted to address that part of the video that Hoodie did. If you want to see his video, go check it out. I'm going to put it in the description section. Okay? And if you guys want to go check it out, he gets really deep into it. He gives examples, and he brings a couple of other things up along the way. If you're interested, check him out. It's Hoodie from the Hood. Most of his videos are pretty good. Anyways, that being said, I just wanted to give a little information, at least from my experience, through my eyes. And like I said, this is very much opinionated, you know, and what I've witnessed. So if you think, feel, or see something different, leave it in the comment section so I could check it out, and we could talk about it. I'd really appreciate that. Okay, that's going to be my video for today. Thank you for watching. God bless you. God bless your families. Stay free, people. Stay free. And let's be out here where we could be with our friends and our families and our loved ones. And we could be there for them when they need us, or when we need to be with them. You know, instead of being incarcerated, locked up behind bars or behind those walls and barbed wire for years, depending on them with everything that's going on in life and in this world. Stay safe, people. Thank you for watching.